I tried seeing doctors and specialists who gave me different kinds of medication, hydrocortisone for adrenal fatigue, thyroid medication, IV treatments for tons and tons of B vitamins to help stimulate my nervous system, adaptogens, detoxes. At the time, I was fully convinced this would finally solve the problem. Not only did I feel the same, I felt worse sometimes, and it was a huge letdown. How's it going, guys? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. I run this YouTube channel to help people recover from chronic fatigue syndrome because I myself struggled for 4.5 years with chronic fatigue syndrome. I went from very fit to very sick to not even being able to walk, to get up out of bed. And after 8 months of being completely bedridden, I finally figured out how to get better. Luckily, I met a doctor who taught me a lot of the strategies and principles that I share on this channel. So in this video, I want to talk about how there's not just one thing that is going to get you out of this situation, this little mess we're in life, right? Whether you've been in this mess for, a couple months or several years, it's very common that people feel more and more helpless as time goes on with this illness. And from what we read online, from what doctors have told us, or, from things we research, we as humans, we hope and pray and believe that there is one thing that will fix all of this, whether it's a magic pill or a magic brain retraining exercise. This one is notorious in this whole chronic fatigue syndrome community. The fact that there's this one brain retraining exercise that could cure it all, that is not true. I'll tell you right now, that is not true. And if people say that is true, if people say they got better with one brain retraining exercise, they're lying to you. So let's just get that out of the way first. It's going to take much more than just one specific exercise or brain retraining exercise or meditation to get you out of this. It's going to take understanding what's going on, and it's going to take actually applying it over time to help you get out of this. And those are just a few things. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. I was sick for about 4.5 years. The first 4 years, I had no idea what the heck was going on. I did not know if I had adrenal fatigue, if I had Lyme's, if I had early onset of Parkinson's because I was shaking so much. I did not know if, there was mold poisoning in my body. I didn't know if I was going crazy. I didn't know if I was living in a dream, living a nightmare, or if this was real life. That's how much brain fog I had. I tried all these different things. I tried seeing doctors and specialists who gave me different kinds of medication, hydrocortisone for adrenal fatigue. They gave me thyroid medication because they thought my thyroid was messed up. They gave me IV treatments for B vitamins, tons and tons of B vitamins to help stimulate my nervous system. I took adaptogens, I did detoxes, I tried almost everything you could think of, right? Chances are you're in the same boat. You've tried many things, and the reason you're even watching this video right now is probably because you've run out of options. The doctors aren't really giving you a solid answer, which is probably why you opened up YouTube, typed in chronic fatigue syndrome, how to recover from it, and you came across my channel. So just to let you know, you're probably in the right place if you're looking for that answer. No one usually just stumbles across this channel. So what I'm trying to say is, I've tried many things in the past that did not work. And a lot of these things, at the time, I was fully convinced this would finally solve the problem. And I would get super excited when I started them. Then as the days went on or the hours went on, I noticed not only did I feel the same, I felt worse sometimes, and it was a huge letdown. And so with recovery, what I've realized, having gone through it myself, having gone through the journey of chronic fatigue syndrome and coming out the other side of it, and also helping people to this day from all different parts of the world, all different backgrounds, all different causes of chronic fatigue syndrome, what I've found is this one major concept. And I'm full of analogies, so here's an analogy for you. Imagine you have this string, and you throw the string on the floor and you leave it with a bunch of kids for the day. You leave the room, 6 hours goes by. At the end of the day, you come back in the room, and next thing you know, this piece of string has knots upon knots upon knots. It's not just one knot or 5 or 10, it's knots within knots. So now it's a complete mess. Now, what most people try to do when they try solving this knot, and let's say the knot is essentially your nervous system all wound up, all these health symptoms, reacting to other symptoms, triggering other symptoms. So it's just a big jumbled mess. That's kind of how we can describe it here. Throughout all the dozens of symptoms you have, what most people try to do is they'll see this big chunk of knots and they'll try to pull it apart as hard as they can. They'll fight through it. They'll try to force their way through recovery and try to push through. And that just makes the knot even tighter, and which creates more of a mess. So we try to pull it apart and yank it and use brute force, but that only makes the problem worse. So once we realize that, oh no, this is probably making it worse, that's when we're able to take a step back and be like, okay, how are we gonna get through this? With recovery, if we have this knot that we're dealing with, which is your health, there's a bunch of issues within issues, we actually have to take a step back and think about this logically from a scientific, logical perspective. We can't just try pulling this knot or try pulling this and let's see what happens here. No, we actually have to take a step back and analyze it and see what's going on. And once we realize what's actually going on, once you learn the concepts that I teach on this channel, which is the fact that most, if not all of your symptoms are highly likely stemming from just a hypersensitive nervous system issue. Meaning your nervous system is triggering all these symptoms as a defense mechanism, as a limiter for your body to try and slow you down, to stop you from introducing any more stress to it. And I have another video where I dive really deep into that topic. You can watch it up here. Make sure you watch that if you haven't already, because then this will start to make more sense. So definitely watch that video. But essentially your nervous system is triggering these symptoms. And so once we understand that, we're able to see symptoms for what they are. We're able to look at the knots and actually analyze things and be like, okay, we need to do this, we need to take this out here, we're gonna pull this here, versus just trying to use brute force, right? It's very strategic. Recovery is very strategic. It's very predictable. If you just follow a few basic principles, then recovery becomes inevitable, right? So if we have this knot, the last thing we wanna do is try pulling at it and try guessing our way through it and yanking here, yanking there. But that's typically what people do. They'll try this treatment, that treatment, without even knowing what they're trying to fix, which makes sense. I've been there before, I've done that, and it's not our fault. It's really the lack of information that has led us to this place, because of course we want to get better, but there's not too many books about this. Most doctors do not know about this. In fact, I feel like I won the lottery because the doctor that I met in the hospital, he was the only one who understood what was going on and understood the solution to it. Out of everybody I talked to, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people from Europe, South America, Asia, India, Africa, all these places, they haven't really met a doctor who understood this. Or if they did, I haven't heard about it. So no matter where people are in the world, like, this information is really hard to find. So it's not your fault that you're stuck where you are now. But the fact that you found this channel and you found this information, now you do have the right information and you do have the tools needed to recover. If you've been to doctors and they've turned you away because they can't explain what's going on, this is your chance, this is your opportunity. So what we have to do is take a step back and look at the knots, and instead of pulling it with brute force and trying to yank it apart, we actually have to analyze it and be strategic about how we recover, how we undo that knot. We can't just pull here and there and hope for the best, right? It doesn't work like that. We actually have to think a few steps ahead, knowing and anticipating what is to come. And little by little, we're peeling away layers of that knot. We're removing this loop, we're removing that loop. And eventually that knot goes from extremely complex to extremely simple, to the point where there's less and less knots and you don't really have to think much, because you're used to finding the knot and pulling it out. Find the knot, pulling it out. So essentially that's what's happening in the body. There's this massive knot in your nervous system where things are reacting not in a normal manner. They're hypersensitive. Symptoms are triggering this and this is triggering symptoms, and it's just a big jumbled mess. So don't use brute force. Don't use guesswork. Don't rely on chance. Don't leave it up to luck. Recovery does not happen by accident. We actually need to go in there and use logic, the things that I dive deep into on this channel, and really start to pull apart these knots strategically, not just pulling away just because we think it's right. You need to know what you're even fixing first before you can truly fix it. But most people don't fully understand what we're even trying to fix here. They still believe that these palpitations mean they're about to have a heart attack, or this fatigue means that their muscles are shutting down. You know, I believe that at one point. When I was living at my grandparents' house, I remember this one time I was in such a bad adjustment period. In fact, I think that was a crash because I was having panic attack after panic attack. My grandpa called the ambulance, and as soon as the paramedics came in, he just told them, his organs are shutting down, his organs are shutting down, you gotta come get him. And meanwhile, the rest of my family laughed because, I mean, obviously my organs weren't shutting down, but that's what it felt like at the time. It felt like my lungs were shutting down, I couldn't breathe, and my body would just literally melt and I would cease to exist. That's what it felt like. And that's because I didn't understand what was going on. Whereas after I learned all of these things, I knew, okay, my body is not shutting down, my organs are not shutting down. My nervous system is just triggering all these things, not just physically, but it's also triggering these irrational thoughts that don't necessarily make sense, but they feel really scary. And the brain is just triggering fear. But once I understood all of that and I knew how to work around that, I was able to slowly undo the knot of CFS. So that's what I imagine it as now. You know, it's essentially a knot in the nervous system and things are tangled, and wires are in the wrong place. It's triggering all these different things that should not be triggered. And so I just want you to think about it that way. You know, don't use brute force trying to recover. Stick to the science, stick to logic. There's actual step-by-step things that you can do, and just watch it on my channel. I think one of the best videos that I put out on this channel, you could watch it up here, and I break down the science of how I got rid of, you know, all my POT symptoms, all my fibromyalgia symptoms, like the severe chronic pain I had, all the fatigue I had. I break it down step by step on the things that I needed to do in order to recover. So you can watch that video up here, but I hope that makes sense to you. I hope that analogy helps. And if it did, make sure to leave a comment down below. I'm doing subscriber highlights. So I'm picking out any comments that I find are very, intriguing, and I'm gonna pop it up on the screen, just like I am right here. So this YouTube comment is from one of the videos I posted titled, "You don't need to explain your illness to anyone." This is one of the short snippets I did, but Olivia, shout out to Olivia, she wrote down, "This is so true. Thank you for addressing this. Once I stopped trying to justify and explain my health struggles to others, I felt more free to truly enjoy life, more without feeling like I needed to explain anything." That lifts a lot of stress. I think it takes people time to get to that point though, which is so true. So don't feel like you need to explain things to other people, because the reality is they will never understand, nor would you want them to understand what it feels like to be in your shoes, because it's hell and you don't want anybody else to go through hell. But that is a subscriber highlight of the week. Thanks for that comment, Olivia. If you want a chance to be featured in the next video, make sure you comment down below something you got out of this video, some value that you can apply to your current situation, or how different things on my channel have helped you move along your journey. And I would love to highlight that comment in this video. But if you did get some value out of this, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Most importantly, hit that notification bell, because YouTube now, for some reason, it doesn't really notify everybody when I post a video, even if you're subscribed, or it will actually unsubscribe people from the channel. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of this valuable information. I post videos literally every single day, 2 main videos a week, and 7 short snippet reminders to really just help you stay on track. So if you want to get notified on all of that, if you want those constant reminders to help you keep the train on the rails in recovery, hit that notification bell. Until next time, remember, you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. You are a thriver, and I'll see you in the next video.